Hey, what's going on? Welcome to episode 25 of the Dan Gheesling podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today, whether you're listening in transit, on the subway, riding your bike, driving your car, walking to school, however you decide to listen. Maybe you're on the treadmill right now. I just try to hit everything, so when I do that, someone's like, oh, that's me, or I'm walking the dog, whatever you're doing. I appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen to this every single Monday. It means a lot, and I've been getting a lot of feedback, and I truly appreciate that. With that being said, we're going to jump in to today's episode. Before we do that, this is being recorded pre-Super Bowl, so I'm going to go ahead and say the Patriots win on a last-second field goal. Put that in the book. When this comes out the day after the Super Bowl. We'll see how it's good. And the funny thing is about making that comment, you could probably listen to this in the next 5 to 7 years, and it's probably still the same Super Bowl. Anyways, with that being said, I want to jump into something new I'm doing this week. And in the past, it was a previous episode, we talked about doing merch for the first time on the channel. And if you hadn't listened to that episode, I definitely would recommend listening to it, because I go through the process of everything I had to do to take merch in-house and going through that process of designing it, finding out what the best way to do it is. And really, it was almost like an experiment, talking about what worked well and what didn't work well, things I would never do again. That looks like it was on November 19th, 2018. So it's, a couple months ago. So long story short, I'm going to take another shot at some merch in a different experiment type way. And this merch is centered around the NCAA series we have going on YouTube. And it's definitely a surprising thing for a couple things. Number one, if you guys have listened to the past couple episodes, we started a new series on YouTube from a PlayStation 3 game, so a game that's 6+ years old, an NCAA football game. We started a dynasty, so essentially we took this school that's okay and not very good, and we're trying to build them up to be a national champion. And in the meantime of that, while that series started, it's one of the games I played growing up as a kid. I really enjoyed it, and the series has done really, really well on the channel. And there's a couple reasons why I think why. There's never an exact reason or one reason why I think you can hammer down and say, hey, this is why this series is doing well. But a couple observations. I think this series is doing well because there's a lot of deep engagement. There's a lot of comments on the video. There's a lot of people who care a lot about what's going on. And, I think one of the things that helps with that is we overlay comments on each episode. So from a previous episode, we edited and have some of the best comments actually show up in the actual video. So I think it encourages more dialogue. It lets people know that we actually read the dialogue. I read the comments and take what everyone says into consideration and try to integrate and execute on what a lot of people want to see in the series. I think some really fun organic storylines have developed throughout the series, whether it's a quarterback controversy, different rivalries, the way we sometimes lose games, how we take shots, just stuff like that has really developed. I think consistency since we started the series, every single episode's come out at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time without any fault. And even to the point where on Friday, because I get with Zane, the editor, and I record the episode and ship it off to him and just, put blind faith in him that the episode's going to be up at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And on Friday, it was about noon. I was about to go live on Twitch, and I didn't see the episode uploaded. And it's so important to me because I think to be successful or have a successful series on YouTube, you can't skip a day. You can't say, oh, Lost isn't coming out at 3 o'clock today. It's coming out at 5 p.m. Eastern. So I was in the process of delaying the stream so I could edit it and upload it. And then Zayd kind of came in out of nowhere and said, hey, I got it. But that's just the level of importance I've placed on it internally in the content creation process. And then I think the other thing that's helped outside of consistency is, I think I bring some expertise and a different look to the series with having such a football background. So with all that stuff, it made sense to say, hey, I'm going to try to make a shirt for this series if something happens. So in the event that we win a conference championship in game, which for a team like we have, where we've taken over Wyoming, who's okay. I think we got some ball players, but to do that in the series isn't an easy thing. So I said, okay, hey, if in this series we win this conference championship, then we'll release a t-shirt kind of as like a celebration or almost like a championship t-shirt. for, the boosters or for the supporters of the series. So that episode will be out by the time this podcast goes live. So if you haven't seen that episode and you're into that series, you may want to shut this off right now because I'm about to say what happens. So we ended up winning the conference championship. And so now it's like, okay, now we're going to get a shirt out. And so here was the process I went through on this. And this is, when I did the other merch we did in-house, I did essentially everything. I sourced the hats. I went out and found the product I wanted. I had to get order 8 or 9 different samples, pick out one, and then, find someone who could embroider and do all that stuff. So I did everything essentially the manual way to control quality. This time I'm taking a different approach. I don't know which way is better, so the only way I'll know is to actually test it and do it. So we're going to be using a product creation company or t-shirt company called Teespring, and it's integrated with YouTube, and I'm going to talk about that and why that's important in a second. But here was the process on what I did to get this new shirt out as of, it'll be out right a couple hours after the series goes live where we win the conference championship. So first thing I did was there's an individual on Instagram who was doing a lot of fan art for the series, which I thought was really cool. It's another indication that people are really enjoying the series because, for what we do on the channel, it's pretty rare to get fan art. And, I don't really like the term fan art, but, I guess I could call it community art. But it was really cool. So I reached out to him and said, hey, I'd like to commission you to do a t-shirt. Here's what I had in mind. And I really wanted to work with this individual, but it just took too long. And so I said, hey, it was taking too long. I said, hey, you know what? I want to do something with you in the future, but, I got to take the reins on this just because to me it was just, I just want to get this thing going. Whenever I get an idea, I just want to execute, get it done, and move on. And I don't really, I'm not very patient when it comes to that stuff. And I know working with artists and stuff like that, I think it's just a process, right? I look at, with Tyler, who edits the podcast, it took a little while to get in a groove, and with Zane, took a while to get in the groove, because essentially, they're artists in their own way, whether editing or producing a podcast or editing videos. But once everyone kind of knows what each other wants, then it's more streamlined. So I think, I'll get to that point with an artist at some point. But for this, I just wanted to get it cranked out. So I said, you know what, this is taking too long. Let me design it myself. And, I've got some experience in Photoshop. I'd say I'm probably C+, B- working knowledge and talent in Photoshop, but I think it's better than most, and where I feel confident I can put something pretty simple together. And so I came up, what I did differently right off the bat outside of, essentially, I'm not going to bring this up again, but instead now we're using a company. So outside of that, what I did differently is I designed 3 logos or 3 shirt ideas or 3 product design ideas. And in the past, I just designed one. I said, all right, here's where it's going to be. But I took these 3 designs, I posted them in the video and asked in the comments, which do you like best? In addition to that, there's a feature of YouTube that's not very well used or very well utilized or even known about. And each channel has a community tab. And in the community tab, it's almost like a Facebook wall. You can post pictures, you can post polls. And so I also posted the 3 logos on the YouTube community page to say what people wanted. And I walked into that and it wasn't surprised, right? I didn't have any expectations of, it's not necessarily true. I thought one design may be favored over another, and it really stressed to me the importance of talking to and listening to the community, because I would say it was probably heavy-handed towards one design with a backup, different design. But it was pretty clear and pretty evident which design people wanted, which made it easy for me, right? I don't have to guess, which one does people like, or I hope they like this. I said, hey, which one do you guys like? They said, we like this one. So that was something I did different. The first time I didn't poll or get any feedback from the community on the hat that we did. So outside of that, then, I collected the votes, saw the most popular design, and then went to Teespring. So you go to Teespring, you upload your design. I made it a pretty simple design. I knew I wanted to do it one color, just so it would show up nice, and, the printing will hopefully be a lot simpler with one color design, and hopefully that makes it easier. But you log into Teespring and there's a ton of decisions you have to make. That, if you're going to do a t-shirt, there's like 4 to 5 t-shirts. Which t-shirt's the best? They have, super, super inexpensive t-shirts, but I imagine the quality isn't great. So you got to make these decisions. And ultimately I made the decision to go with either the best quality or second to best quality, whichever one I selected. The reason I selected it wasn't because of quality. I selected it because it could be made in the US or Europe. So some of the t-shirts you can pick are only made in the US, which I'd imagine makes shipping really expensive for someone in Europe who may enjoy the series. So I wanted to try and pick the products based on making it available to the most widespread and easiest and cheapest, no matter where you live in the world, if you enjoy the series. So did that, made the t-shirt decision. Then you're like, all right, well, do you do a sweatshirt? Do you do a phone case? Do you do a mug? And ultimately, the good thing about Teespring is I can do all of them or none of them, and it's not that much more work. The only downside to having that many products, in my opinion, is not having a clean looking store. And, I don't really know the quality of any of this stuff, so it's definitely an experiment. So do I want to do 7 or 8 different products and I don't know anything about them anyways? I'm going to order, a shirt for myself and see how it is. But by the time I get that, when I order the shirt, everyone else is going to have the same opportunity to order the shirts as well. So I got to make a decision on that. A lot of that is going to be based on color because I want to keep it in a certain color scheme. But, those are all decisions that need to be made. But I think it's definitely a lot simpler, a lot easier. And I think, as long as the quality is good, it just seems to make a whole lot of sense to do it this way. You're definitely limited in terms of the options of what products and things you can use. But, I ultimately end up picking Teespring because one of the things I think is really cool and smart that Teespring did is they've integrated with YouTube. So I have the option, if I want, which I am going to do, on it in YouTube videos, right underneath the video, instead of comments or the description, it will show the t-shirt, where if you use a different company, you're not going to have that option. So if someone is looking to buy the t-shirt or didn't even know the t-shirt existed because maybe they skipped through the video or whatever, it's going to be right there. So, I think it's going to be a really cool experiment. I'm looking forward to testing it out, see what people like. And, like I said, the first time I did merch, I've always been, I don't want to say shy away from it, but just has not been, at the forefront. But the coolest thing for me as a creator on this side of things wasn't, selling merch. It was seeing people wearing it and posting pictures of it in the community Discord. To me, that was like, because it was a lot of work to do the first set of merch. And that was like the huge payday, was that, just seeing people really enjoy it and wear it. That was really cool. And I'd never really done anything like that or to that extent. So, we'll see how this goes. It's one of these things where that's why this is as much a online diary or journal as much as it is a podcast, because I like to try and experiment things and then come back here and share with you guys what went well and what didn't. So I'm excited to see how this thing shakes out and see if people enjoy it and take it from there. So as I was doing this, I had another fun idea for the series, and it's been a great thing to bring the NCAA series to the channel. With the I talked a little bit about in the last episode. I really enjoy doing it. I love it. I look forward to it. There's not a day where I don't think about the series or interacting with it. It's just really easy series to make because I like it so much. And with the only caveat being is that the episodes take so long to make. They're 45 to 50-minute episodes. It just doesn't allow me to get that second video out that I want to right now until I tune up my schedule a little bit. I got to get a little bit more discipline so I can crank out some more indie videos and things like that. But, Tarkov really just has not done well on the channel at all, which is it's so interesting to me that it's almost like the communities are a little fragmented. Not a little, I would say very fragmented in terms of what people like to see on YouTube is not what people like to see on Twitch and vice versa. And so I think it's really important. I think it still is important to put Tarkov videos on YouTube because I think it's got a chance to, help grow the show, and I think people enjoy it. I just haven't really found a good mix yet. I haven't found what's worked, and I think part of it is lack of consistency. But anyways, got a little off track. I had an idea that I wanted to integrate with with the Go Wyoming series, the Wyoming NCAA series, was that at the end of season 1, I had a recap episode where there's a lot of admin work. You do some recruiting, you do scheduling, you do redshirting, you do a lot of back end work on your team, which is cool and fun to watch. But I wanted to, and I think people enjoyed watching it, but I wanted to do something different for the end of the season 2, admin episode, if you will. And so what I did is I set up something called SpeakPipe, and SpeakPipe it's a free service you can use that is essentially an online voicemail box. And so at the end of the conference championship, I said, hey, go to dangheesling.com/boosters and leave a voicemail question or comment or concern or favorite moment. But there's going to be like a pseudo press conference at the end of season 2 where I'm going to be playing, if people do it, I'll play, some people's voicemail questions, almost run it like a pseudo postseason press conference. I'm really looking forward to that. It's been really easy to come up with creative and different ideas to do during the series. One of the things that I do is if I have enough time on the play clock, so in college football, I don't know what the play clock is, 35 seconds, but if I pick the play fast enough and I have like 20 to 25 seconds before I have to snap the ball and run the play, I'll online telestrate what's going to happen during the play. This person's going to block this person. This is what should happen. And so it's just been really easy to be creative in this series. And this is another way, it could be one of those things that goes really well or something that no one does, but just another experiment. And I think that's been the fun thing about the series, of just trying to continue to innovate as the series goes on and keep it engaging for people. But it's been so rare to have a series like this that's sequential, and the views really just haven't dropped off. The views are right around 17 to 1,600 views an episode, where normally you do a series and as you go longer and longer in the series, they kind of tail off. But I don't know. I don't have a ton of answers as to why. I'm just having fun with it and enjoying with it as it goes on. So that being said, last week we did a lot of planning for an event on Twitch called it was actually the second Resin Rivalry with Ryan Gary Letourneau, aka Northern Lion. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed planning it. Ryan absolutely destroyed me. I went 0-8. He 8-0'd me, went undefeated. But I really enjoyed the planning and the event. But I think most importantly, the feedback after the event was so huge. And feedback, good or bad, as someone who makes videos and shows on YouTube, is so important. And for whatever reason, I feel fortunate that when I read feedback, whether it's super personal or super harsh, I don't take it personal. I don't take it like, oh my gosh, I'm going to fold my YouTube video, or I'm never going to do one of these videos again, or whatever. I just take the feedback. I'm like, yo, thank you so much. This is an opportunity to make what I'm doing or what we're doing better. And so when people do that, when people, take the time to leave feedback, and this I read off of one of the subreddits, but you start to see, regarding the event, I started to see the same thing over and over and over again. I think the title was like, hey, the Resin Rivalry missed the boat on this, and here's why. And it's always way more helpful to get feedback that's saying like, hey, I didn't like this. Here's why. Here's what I would do different, other than, hey, I just didn't like this, right? That's fine that you didn't like it, but to make things better, getting that suggestion is so important. And the thing I started to see time and time again about the Resin Rivalry series is that the way we had things set up, and it was my decision, and clearly it was not the right decision, or I would say not the right decision, but definitely something we're going to change in the next one, is that Ryan and I would talk in between fights, but during the fight, I would hit the button and kill the mic. So there was no banter, there was no talking back and forth during the actual fights. And a lot of people said that really kind of killed the flow. Some people had a second window open during the events because it just, I think someone said it, something like, hey, I'm not tuning in to see, the two best Smash players in the world go at it. And to me, that made a lot of sense. And a lot of people followed that up saying that they wish there was some more banter. And so the way that I had set it up, it really gave no chance for banter whatsoever. And I feel like that's one of the fun things that I get to do with Ryan, is I feel like, it's really easy to play off. I'm really, it's just simple. it's not hard working with them, but I think that's one of the things that makes it interesting to watch is when we are kind of bouncing stuff off each other. And by killing the mics in between that, it didn't allow for that to happen. So, like I said, as opposed to being offended or opposed to, saying, oh, these people don't know what they're talking about, the event was awesome, I look at that and I'm so grateful. I'm like, hey, look, in the next one, here's what we're going to do. And I sent a message to Ryan. I'm like, hey, look, I think the event went really well. I saw this feedback. I think the next one, let's do it this way. And, he's super easy to work with. And so it's so helpful. And I feel like over time, and that, take this as hubris, take this as cocky, whatever you want. I feel like over time, in this long-term game of things that I'm doing between YouTube and Twitch, I feel like we're going to win long-term because I always listen to the audience and listen to the community. If people don't like something and a lot of people start not liking something, I don't do it. I pivot and adjust. And it's just really important to me because at the end of the day, I want to make things that people want to watch, that people feel good about, that people look forward to. And, that all that stuff does not just come from your head. You can't just make that up. A lot of it is trial and error. A lot of it is just catching the feedback and listening to the people that you make things for. Even with the podcast, if I start to get tweets saying, hey, Dan, we hate these, or do way more interviews and less of these or whatever, I would change the flow of it. But right now, it's just so important, the feedback. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. And whether you may have left a message on that thread, or watched it, enjoyed it in its current format, thank you guys so much. I really enjoyed that series. And the last thing I want to talk about here is one of the things I'm missing on the show is right now on the show that's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm missing some interaction. Like I would say internally, I feel that way, and I think creatively I feel that way a little bit in terms of the games that I play. So I play Escape from Tarkov, and there's no communication in the game. There's no VoIP yet. I think at some point they are planning on putting VoIP in the game. VoIP meaning voice over IP, meaning you can talk to people actually in the game, meaning that your voice, you can physically speak with someone in the game. That's not in the game right now. And then I always follow it up with a single player game. So right now, we played The Messenger. Right now we're playing Mario Odyssey. And there's no interaction there either. I'm not talking about chat and interaction. Chat's been amazing. The audience has been amazing. I'm talking about with like another human bringing in the random element. And and there's like talk about listening to the audience in the Discord. There's this room. There's a bunch of rooms in Discord. There's the main chat room. There's a sports room, a Twitch subscriber room. There's a room for Wyoming football. But there's a room called Suggestions for Dan. And someone said, I miss Dan interviewing randoms in PUBG, and some people reacted to that and agreed to it. And to me, like, I miss that. I want to do more of it, but I have to be careful, right? I don't want to disrupt the normal flow of the show, and in particular the expectations of the show. So people expect to tune in Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to see Tarkov and a single player game. So I gotta be able to experiment without alienating or pushing away the audience that normally expects one thing. And so that's something I'll be thinking about this week when I plan and tweet out the schedule for the week. I think we're going to take a shot at PUBG, but I don't want to take a shot at PUBG until I play the game off camera, because it could be one of those things where you romanticize it in your head, like, oh, PUBG was so fun when we were playing with randoms, and it was during that time, but I don't know if that time's passed, and the only way to do that is to try it. And so it's just a matter of, cutting out the time and giving it a shot and seeing how it feels. And I don't know, I'm all for experimenting, but I feel like I have to do a little due diligence on the back end before I make any announcements like that. So I don't know, that's why I'm hoping that VoIP comes to Tarkov very soon, because I think that will definitely help in that, But I also feel like, what if you just hang on to Tarkov and it's eventually going to come around? You know what I mean? I just feel like there's a little bit of a jeopardy in bouncing from game to game. Not that I would bounce in Tarkov, but it's just something that's in the back of my head that I'm thinking about and I need to make a decision on. So that being said, I do want to end with the question of the day. I pulled this question off of Discord. Actually, I pulled it from the suggestions room. And this is from HSoul0 said, has Dan ever done an open world RPG. I don't really count Dark Souls as an open world. So we've tried it, and I think this is important in talking about experimenting with your channel. We've tried, I'd say the closest thing to open world RPG, even though it's not an RPG, the open world game we played on the Twitch show was Red Dead Redemption 2, which I was really fired up to play, really excited to play. And you go to play it, and it, in terms of the way the show is designed, the way the community is, the way I am as a broadcaster, it doesn't fit very well. I've noticed that the show does better when there's less narrative and more room for us to improvise and just make stuff up. And when you play an open world RPG, there's a lot of set storyline. And also, I don't do well if there's too much freedom. So it's like walking that fine line of, if there's too much freedom, I'll spend 45 minutes picking daisies out in the back 40 versus staying on a storyline. So it's such a weird line that I have to walk, but I'm very aware of the line that I have to walk because I feel like I'm self-aware and listen to a lot of feedback about the show, about what makes the show unique. And me going off the trail to hunt, 18 different types of hawks in Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't the answer. And it's really one of the few games, if maybe the only game on the show that we've canceled. And not because it wasn't a good game, it just wasn't a great fit for the show. So I've never done an open world RPG. I don't think I ever will for that reason alone, but it would have to be super unique, and I don't know. I just don't see it. And not in the current show format. Maybe at some point if we were to add a day that's just, a longer stream day that's only one game that's once a week, almost like a subscriber Sunday or whatever like that. But that's a long, long way out. So anyways, with that being said, I would thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Dan Gheesling Podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day. If you haven't had a chance to yet, and if you've been enjoying the podcast series, I would encourage you to go on to iTunes and give it a rating. And we talk about feedback a lot. Rate it a 5-star, 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, 1-star, whatever you rate it. Please leave some comments with it as to what you like about it or what you would like to see improved. That way, we talk about the importance of feedback. It means so much. I just want your honest feedback, and I, it's good to set arbitrary, not important numbers. But I think as of right now, I think we're around 67 total reviews. At the end of 2019, I'd love to be at 100 reviews. So I'm just going to throw out that arbitrary number. You know what? Check that. I want 112 reviews by the end of 2019. So we got a long way to go, but 112, it starts right now. So if you've been enjoying the series and haven't taken time to review it, I would appreciate it. It should probably take like 30 to 45 seconds. You could do it right on your phone. And but anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you, or listening. I will see you guys next week, Monday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the next podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.